And we are live. Hello.
Welcome to 4 Years Late.
Yes. Josie the Thinker.
Sephathechamp.
We are here to review or to read Bell Hooks' The Will to Change.
Yay.
Yay. Okay, so this book. So we're reading 2 chapters, and we're kind of like dissecting each chapter, especially with a lot of things that Bell Hooks has to say about men when it comes to masculinity and love. Yeah. Any thoughts?
Yes. Some background about this author, Bell Hooks. So she, most people know her by her famous book, All About Love.
Mm-hmm.
And fun fact, that book is actually a trilogy. So there's All About Love, Salvation, and Communion. And I've actually read those trilogies last year. And I've also read The Will to Change too, which I think this is like her best work, in my opinion. So All About Love basically is a generalized view about love in society, mostly in heterosexual relationship. And in Salvation, she basically wrote that book specifically for Black women, and how their search to find love is very different from, anybody else, because, our story is just very different.
Yeah.
And then you have Communion. Now, Communion is basically Black love she focuses on. And then you have The Will to Change, which is men, masculinity, and love. So this book came about because people have been asking her, you wrote a whole trilogy mainly focused around like women and patriarchy, and that when are you going to write something for the men? And as she was doing the research to see if there's any literature for men about love and how to love, she realizes that there's actually not much literature for them that is accessible to them. Therefore, she wrote The Will to Change.
Yeah.
And that hopefully adds to the conversation of maleness and love.
Yep. So I wanted to start with the preface. The preface is about men. So this is basically like an introduction of, her introducing the topic of men and starting to lay the groundwork of what she's basically going to talk about in the book, right? So there is a particular statement that she made, which I thought was very, very strong, and I actually want to read it to you guys. So in this instance, so a little bit of background on Bell Hooks and her life. Her father was extremely patriarchal in a household, and it's one of those patriarchal instances where it's his way or the highway, or there's no way at all. So Bell Hook felt threatened by his masculinity that was presented throughout patriarchy in his household. So the search for her to basically find love in her father was so grand. And she even said that, she yearns for the love of her father, which,
most people do,
which is completely understandable. But this is what she said. I'm going to read you the passage, and I'm going to highlight where I find to be, where I kind of paused a little bit, right? Okay. When I left home and went away to college, if I called home, my father answered. I hung up. I had nothing to say to him. I had no words to communicate to the dad who did not listen, who did not seem to care, who did not speak words of tenderness or love. I had no need for a patriarchal dad, and feminism had taught me that I could forget about him, turn away from him. In turning away from my dad, I turned away from a part of myself, and this is where I highlighted. It is a fiction of false feminism that we women can find our power in a world without men, in a world where we deny our connection to men.
But finish it though. You highlighted that, but you have to finish the whole quote.
Okay, cool. We claim our power fully only when we can speak the truth that we need men in our lives. that men are in our lives whether we want them to be or not, and that we need men to challenge patriarchy, that we need men to change. So that's the whole paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
But that part right there just was a kicker for me.
You disagreed with it. Why?
I disagreed with it in the sense that it did not leave room for those that do not have men in their lives but are still thriving in their lives, right?
Okay.
So she said it is a fiction of false feminism that we women find our power in a world without men. So she's saying
But that's a literal thing that she's talking about.
What's a literal thing?
Like that we can find our power in a world without men.
Why is that a fiction?
No, I'm saying that is a literal thing that she's talking about. You know how like on TikTok or whatever, people are like, oh, like what would you do with the world without men?
Yeah.
And women would be like, I don't know, I would walk late at night.
Yeah.
And not feel threatened. I will wear whatever I want, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like this quote is taking on a literal thing of like, first of all, for there to be a world without men will never happen. Because you will always have women that will birthing these men.
But that was not implied. That's the thing. No, it wasn't implied. Because here she says, right? It is a fiction for false feminism where we find we find our power in or without men in a world where we deny our connection to men. And then she said, we claim our power fully when we can speak the truth that we need men in our lives. So in contrast, she's saying we need men in our lives.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is not what she's implying. Right? She's saying we need men in our lives. In order
because they're
to
always
find
going to be
our
there.
power. Yes, they're always going to be there, but it's not leaving room for any other possibility.
Because for that possibility to actually manifest, like we are light years away from that. Women are now beginning to choose to not have sex with men and not reproducing, right? That's just happening, and that's like a small number of women.
But it's still happening regardless, right? Whether it's happening on a smaller scale, the fact is that it's happening.
Yeah,
right?
But when she says that we claim our power by speaking the truth that we do need men, I think it's a way of recognizing that no matter what the fight of feminism is, we will always encounter these males. Whether it be our brothers, our co-workers, literally waiting in line at the grocery store or ordering coffee. The person that is serving you can be a male, right? And you have to interact with them to get a cup of coffee.
Yes, that is true.
So she's saying we can only speak the truth.
Okay. Okay.
Right?
Yes.
We can only speak the truth that we need the males in our lives.
I don't know.
Okay, I think maybe that part of like the need, I don't feel like we really like, because the necessity is something that is
you can't live
without.
Exactly. So when she's suggesting this need, right? But then she's using the need in correlation with women's power. Right? She said we women can find power without men. So she's using the need in order for women to get power.
Okay.
And I don't think that's necessarily true.
Okay.
I think there's power outside of men.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So when she said that, I'm like, I don't think that's necessarily like
a
true.
Truth. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? But that was just the preface. We didn't actually get to the chapter yet, but okay. Yeah, but that was the preface. I was really hesitant about that because I feel like it was a very strong statement, and especially like in my life right now, like I know a lot of women that are living their lives without the counterpart and they're thriving, right? If that's true, and I'm reading this, and it's like, well, there's
different realities that says the opposite of that is true.
Right, and Bell Hooks, she's like still what in a 21st century like post feminism era, so she is like, and she died in 2021, may she rest in peace, but Yeah, no, I think this book is very, very much relevant.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah.
That's true.
Any thoughts on the preface?
Not particularly. I think when she mentions this author called Barbara Deming and how
Yeah.
she expressed about her father's death and how it was through her father's dying that she was able to have freedom.
That's very powerful, by the way.
Yeah. And Bell Hooks basically used that story to basically say that there is an actual real fear when it comes to the interactions of men.
Yeah.
And how our light is like dim and we can only reclaim that lightness if most of them die off the face of the earth. And this author, Barbara Deming, basically expressed that in a very poetic way, I would say. If I could read some of it, let me see. Okay, so she said, my longing for my father's death began in childhood. It was the way I responded to his rage, his violence. I used to dream him gone, dead and gone. Death was the way out of the fear evoked by the proclamation, quote, wait until your father comes home. The threat of punishment was so intense, his power over us so real. Lying in my girlhood bed, waiting to hear the hard anger in his voice, the invasive sound of his command, I used to think if only he would die, we could live.
That is powerful.
That's a reality for a lot of women.
A lot of women,
a
especially
lot of young girls.
Especially a lot of women in extreme patriarchal societies.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And us coming from an African background, like we are a testament of that. But yeah, I 1000% agree. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so chapter 1 is wanted.
Oh, I'm sorry. I want to talk about how she ended the preface.
Oh, yeah, right? Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
So, she ended the preface by basically saying that the part of feminism that she participated in was very much hateful, like raging, like those type of feminists that really hate men, right? And she found that those type of feminists didn't really add value to what feminism was truly about, which is, the equality and liberation for all. So if we say that we're feminists, and yes, our anger is what am I trying to say?
A byproduct of, right, or a reaction.
An actual reality and reaction for the things that were done to us. But she said that if we just leave these men with nothing to do, with no blueprint to anything, how can we say we're just going to be complaining and complaining and complaining and that's it? So instead, why don't we add to the conversation? Why don't we add literature and a blueprint for them to do that? And I almost I find myself kind of thinking, well, why is that a burden on women to do that? Why is the burden on women to provide the blueprint to men? Because women are socialized to be nice and demure and, just like...
Nice and demure.
Women are socialized to
that
love.
That is so
and
2024,
and to receive and to give love.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to give love, then I have to provide you literature so that you can know how to love me. But, when you're like... when people are in a relationship and the man is like, tell me what you do and I'll do it. Tell me, this is literally what the book is. Men are like, we don't know what to do. Tell me what to do. Tell me how to love. Tell me how to love you. And Bell Hooks is like, okay, I've literally written you this book. This is how you can love yourself and love others in community in a very healthy and nuanced way. But I also felt like she is maybe perpetuating the same role that women have to tell men what to do in order to be loved. Because they're not going to figure this shit out by themselves. They need women to figure this shit out and tell them that this is how you figure it out so that they can figure it out themselves. But again, they take the credit and
away
think
from
that
women.
oh, I figured this shit out by myself. It's like, no,
There was
come on,
already a
like,
blueprint.
yeah, it's like
And
when
then
somebody is
yeah.
the head of the household, right? And they're like, well, if you're the head of the household, you're just only contributing financially. You're not contributing emotionally. You're not contributing the labor and everything.
And
if
that's
you
the
look
burden
at
onto
it,
women to
yeah,
do.
if you look at it, women are the head of the household. If I still have to tell the men of the household what to do, you have revoked your right as the person of the household, of the head.
I mean, it makes sense to me.
Yeah. So it's almost as if this book is a service to the men.
I mean,
Like she's still kind of serving men with this book. But it's a really good book.
like you said, it's a very optimistic approach.
Yeah.
Onto
Oh yeah, very
men
optimistic.
and masculinity and love on men, right? So yeah, let's see what she has to say.
Yeah. But that's how she kind of like ended the chapter, basically saying, okay, feminism lacks this type of literature, and I'm gonna provide this blueprint.
Yeah.
And she said, I repeat many points so that each chapter alone will convey the most significant ideas of the whole. Men cannot change if there's no blueprint for change. Men cannot love if they are not taught the art of loving. It is true that men are unwilling to change. No, it is not true that men are unwilling to change. It is true that many men are afraid to change. It is true that masses of men have not even begun to look at the ways that patriarchy keeps them from knowing themselves, from being in touch with their feelings, from loving to know love. Men must be able to let go the will to dominate. Now that is very important to me. To know love, not only to practice love, but to know what love is. You have to be willing. You have to let go the will to dominate.
The will to dominate.
The will to dominate. They must be able to choose life over death. They must be willing to change. So you can only change, you can only get to know love if you just don't dominate others.
No, if you don't have the will to dominate.
Right.
So what does that mean? The will to dominate. Is that like intrinsic? Is that something that is a byproduct of
that is extremely hard to do.
the will?
The will.
Yeah, but what does that look like? The will to dominate.
I don't.
What is it? Is it like a gene? Like what are we fighting here?
I mean, if you have a will to do anything, it basically you have the desire to.
So
to
does that mean
change.
like can I
A will
associate
is a
will with
desire.
destiny?
No, a will is a desire.
The desire to dominate.
Yeah. Because.
But do you think it's inherently like much more in men having that will to dominate?
No, because we know that domination is a learned thing.
Okay, so it's a byproduct of patriarchy, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and
So-
she obviously talks about that.
But I want to go back here, right? She said it's not true that men are unwilling to change. It is true that many men are afraid to change.
Yeah, I kind of see that too. Because even if you look at men that don't participate in this binary social gender roles, they
are met with a lot of resistance
a lot of resistance
because they're not viewed as the typical
macho male masculinity in this patriarchal sphere.
right. So they are like the outlier in a spectrum of manhood and what it means to be a man in a patriarchy.
Right.
Right.
And
So-
they're doing that for themselves. They do that because, but that does not mean that they don't dominate.
They could dominate in different areas.
They could dominate other women.
Yeah.
So you can still be like, okay, I'm not gonna conform to these gender roles.
The
type,
typical
right?
gender roles, yeah.
But are you actively? Do you have the will? Do you still have the will to dominate?
That's a good question.
If you still have the will to dominate, by Bell Hook's definition, you are still participating in this patriarchal sphere, even though these gender roles that you've rejected, deep down, you still have like a.
But I think the gender
You
roles
know?
are just like the surface layer of what patriarchy provides, right? Gender roles is just like the tip. It's not the deeply rooted, like,
I think it is. I think gender roles cements what patriarchy actually is, and it reinforces patriarchy.
No, I'm.
Because if you think that, let's just look at a family structure in, you have a man and a woman and children, right? The man goes out, gets the bacon, the bread, the woman stays at home, take care of the kids. From jump right there, like, you're already participating in that.
I think
You're already participating in that emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, financially, all the leads.
but I'm trying to introduce religion into that.
Oh yeah, religion too, of course.
So I feel like the family structure is the tip, but religion cements that too, because religion affirms patriarchy.
Yes.
So I'm not because women are removing themselves from religion, religion, ideology, theology, whatever like that. But that so that's why I feel like religion kind of like is the one that is like deeply rooted in patriarchy.
Not only that too. It's
not only
religion,
that,
it's
but
the government.
But I'm
the
saying
educational
when it comes
system.
to like the pillars of patriarchy, that
Religion is just one pillar.
one pillar, and you said that family structure is another pillar.
Yeah.
But I think like religion trumps the family, because religion cements the family. It affirms.
There's a
family.
lot of patriarchal families that are non-religious though.
Agreed, but then I don't think that's completely factual in my opinion.
What do you mean?
I believe that of course you can be patriarchal with no religion, right?
Yeah.
But even the rhetoric of men and women that are non-religious, they still spew religious ideology. Like the men of the house, even though they're religious, the men of the house is something that is also biblical. They're spewing ideologies without even knowing that it's biblical.
But they, yeah.
So they're still upholding, indirectly, they're still upholding the patriarchy or religion ideology, even with them being religious.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah. So, yeah. Any last words for the preface?
Nope.
Okay, I think let's just keep this as one video.
Yeah, we're not gonna cut because that's a lot of stuff.
So let's pause and then
Why?
And then do another video for the chapter 1 and chapter 2.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll see you guys in the next video.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.